Tom Barry on his YouTube channel, The New Left, makes some points that I'm going to summarize quickly. I'll link to the video in the information section below so you can watch the whole thing. And then at about 8 minutes in, I'll play the video so you can see his final points. And then I'm going to rebut his final points. First point, neither party is going to fix anything. Both parties are comprised of criminals working for criminals. Check. Number two, the Democrats are supposed to be on our side, but they sell us out every time when it comes to war, NAFTA, the media, the banks, welfare, Social Security. They rig their own elections. They lie like used car salesmen as they pass Republican policy. Check. Number three, we are deluded if we think we can change the party from the inside. I agree with that too. Number four, a political party is not a structure of democracy that can simply be taken over. That's probably his most important point and his most valid point. Political parties are powerful private corporations. We vote for corporations, not political candidates. That's true. Now here's something that not everyone may know. The Democratic Party is merely an alias for a huge corporation called Democratic Services Corporation. This corporation owns the Democratic Party. We, the people, don't own the Democratic Party. Very true. Number 8, there's a CEO and officers that you've probably never heard of. Joe Salmonese is the current CEO. Before him were Seema Nanda and Mary Beth Cahill. The real power of this corporation, though, is the executive committee. The CEO just manages the business affairs. The executive committee consists of 10 people who function as the board of this company. And the chair, currently Tom Perez, rules them. Tom makes the point that the chair rules them because he can remove and replace any member he wants to. So the chair of the DNC is the DNC. So if we wanted to overthrow the DNC, we'd have to buy it. We can't become chair because the President of the United States, if it's a Democrat, appoints the chair. This is from NBC News. When Democrats control the White House, the President of the United States appoints the chair of their party. When they lose the presidential election, they hold an election. But the last few times Democrats lost presidential elections, the outcome of the chairmanship race was decided before voting ever began. In 2005, all the other candidates had dropped out and Howard Dean was elected by a voice vote. In 2001, Terry McAuliffe cut a deal with the only other candidate left in the race, and in 1988, Ron Brown was unopposed. So you have the President of the United States appointing the chair of the DNC, who nominates the President of the United States, who appoints the chair of the DNC, and on and on. We progressives can never break that cycle from the inside. Supposedly, the 447 members of the DNC vote when there isn't a Democratic president, but the outcome is typically decided in advance and then they just rubber stamp it. We saw how this works in yesterday's show, if you want to go back and watch that. The DNC is a private company that can do whatever the hell it wants, as the courts have ruled. For example, the courts recently ruled that the DNC had the right to rig its own primaries against Bernie Sanders. The court ruled that the cigar-chomping bigwigs in the back room can choose any candidate they like. The judge agreed with the way they did it. There is no democracy. This is a corporation. The DNC is a corporation that sells power to the highest bidder. Politicians are the employees, donors are the customers. That was a really good point Tom made. Politicians are the employees, donors are the customers. With apologies to my dear viewers and listeners who like to read along, these are just notes, so I'm going to skip ahead and not reread the part I just forgot to show you. That last point I just made was point number 16. So again, the only way to take over this company is to buy it. Hillary did it in 2016 with the joint fundraising agreement. Howard Dean called this agreement standard operating procedure. So what happened is a candidate for president bought the party, took control of the party, rigged the elections, and gave herself the nomination. The point of the party is to carry out theater to fool the American people that they are resisting the Republicans when they are actually just partners in crime. The DNC encourages progressives to run inside the party so that we can change things. But really, they do this so that they can take our energy, our hope, and enthusiasm and smash it so that we'll consider voting for a corporate pro-war, pro-crime bill, racist rapist. Any power built within the party is borrowed power that can be twisted, co-opted, and removed. So all of this is true, and this is the point in his video where he starts making recommendations. Some of these recommendations seem solid, and others just don't. Point 21 here, we must stop voting for corporations and leave the Democratic Party behind. I'm not sure that it would even make a difference. Whether we vote or not vote, I don't think really even makes a difference. Whether we're registered Democrats or independents or some other party, I don't think makes a difference. He's correct in saying, in 22, this corporation is never going to give us change. This corporation is designed purposely to thwart change and maintain the status quo indefinitely. That's true, but what are we going to do about it? Number 23 is really good information that we all need to know. We function in a duopoly that crushes outside competition. There can only be two major parties in America because if a presidential candidate does not get at least half, if she or he does not get at least 270 of the electoral votes, Congress chooses the president for us. And Congress is not going to choose an outsider. Congress is owned, lock, stock, and barrel, by the oligarchs. So they're not going to pick an outsider. The only way they would be forced to is if the outsider got more than half of the votes, which is impossible if you have 3 or more candidates. I should have said nearly impossible. We saw a little of this when the DNC hired people to run against Bernie. It really fucks the math up. Now, point 24 is good. We have to create something to replace the Democratic Party, something that can't be co-opted, something that permanently puts power in the hands of the people and has some sort of mechanism to hold its leaders accountable. I think he's right about that, but I don't think that we can get that to happen through any other means than by using force. Point 25 may bother some of us, but it's still probably true. The Green Party is just another corporation that can be bought and sold. Line 26 here, Tom Barry, concludes that we need a movement for a People's Party or something like it that provides a more solid foundation. However, he doesn't show how that movement will ever replace the DNC. In our current situation, there will never be a way to replace the DNC through voting. So he contradicts himself really, because he's shown very clearly, point by point, insurmountable point by insurmountable point, that we'll never be able to replace the DNC by voting. His solution is that the movement will grow so large that it will be impossible to win without us. Then they will have to give in to at least some of our demands if they ever want to win elections. But the point is, they don't care about winning elections. This is the major flaw in his logic.
What we need is a movement for a People's Party or something like it that shifts the balance of power and gives us a foundation that we can stand on, something we can build on. And we're not going to win in the short term because it's too rigged against us, but we don't have to win right away. We just have to build an organization that's large enough that no one else can win without us.
He says we don't have to win right away. But with the current climate situation, we actually do have to win right away.
Then the Democratic Party would be forced to give in to at least some of our demands if they ever want to win elections again.
But they don't care about winning elections. Ever.
That's how power works. And this is a long-term plan, so we'd better hurry up because we're staring down the barrel of global catastrophes like war, climate change, mass extinction, financial collapse, famine, slavery, fascism, white supremacy, police brutality. I mean, this list goes on. We're out of time. Our 9 lives are up, and humanity isn't going to make it much longer if we don't do something soon.
If we don't do something soon. So he doesn't say what we need to do that would actually work.
So let's leave the DNC behind and ground our hope in each other instead of corporations, instead of leaders, and then we'll have a real chance.
I don't see how that follows. Non sequitur. I don't see how we're going to have a real chance without actually doing something drastic. He says we need to leave the DNC and ground our hope in each other. That's a good idea. It's going to take all of us together and all of us awake. That's true. We need to form a coalition that doesn't swig corporate media Kool-Aid to get that done. He doesn't say that. We not only need to band together, we need to stop watching, reading, and listening to corporate media. This is what he doesn't say. Movement for a People's Party and other such groups also can be purchased and co-opted. Our Revolution is just one example of how this works. He doesn't say so explicitly, but it appears that all of his hopes rest on elections. This is an inherently flawed basis for hope. We will never vote our way out of the mess we're in. He's already shown us this with his detailed and careful observations of how the DNC is a corporation. He's right to feel a sense of urgency because of the climate crisis and the other things he pointed out, and for that reason we don't have time to fix this through voting. Again, the DNC doesn't even care if we vote. This is my conclusion. The only way we can apply enough leverage is to force the owners and their tools to do the right thing now. The tools are the politicians and the corporate media narrative managers. We need to carry out massive strikes and protests. We need to go directly to the residences of the powerful people, and this is starting to happen with our protests. And we need to insist right in their faces that they do the right thing. We may even need, and this is going to freak people out, we may even need to exercise our Second Amendment rights while we're doing this. It isn't just conservative white people who are allowed to bear arms. All Americans are given this right. I'll give the last word to Frederick Douglass. He said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." It never has, and it never will.